not to like name names on the retailers, right? But this is a common thread, and I call it you get blinded by the retail listing lights. So you're like, you're above a brand, you're a small brand. I know you guys are much bigger, right? But the retailer comes to you, they are the David, they are the Goliath, you're the David, right? And it's like, you want that deal so much, you kind of get blinded by the volumes without looking at the actual margins, right? And what's left in the pot, that you end up saying yes to a shitty deal. Don't really think about the payment deals terms. What are some of those, the terms they're coming to you with? Just, I basically want to see what the difference between why you've said no to retail and why you're going into D2C, or focusing on D2C, I should say.
Yeah, well, early on, like one I will talk about, because actually I've had a nice relationship with them, is Walmart. Walmart is, obviously I think the biggest retailer right now in the world, definitely in the US. The last time I was in negotiations with them, the basic payment terms were net 120. And for anybody who doesn't know what that means that they pay you 120 days after you've given them the product. So you have to float this, if it's selling well, months and months of inventory, and then you maybe have to take some very onerous inventory loans against those purchase orders. That's like, if you don't crush it, you're going to be screwed from a cash flow perspective, and you're always going to be needing capital because you'll become a victim of your success. So net 120, like I would laugh at it, and you don't even get net 30 anymore. If you get net 45, people are like pretty happy, but it's net 60, net 90 is the norm. That, I don't have an interest in that. So I'm not doing anything more than net 30. And I feel like I'm making a compromise there. A lot of people don't know, how are you on eye level in a store versus down at the bottom shelf? None of us go down to the bottom shelf to buy stuff unless we're looking for our specific brand, and that will look all over. But when you're just like, hey, I need pasta, and you get sent to the store, whatever's on eye level, you kind of grab. And, but you pay for that, and then, you've got to give them defective allowances. And then they do destroying the field, where, they get returns, and what they'll do is collect a pallet of these returns and then sell them for 10 cents on the dollar. And now all of a sudden you lose the Amazon buy box because some guy bought a pallet of returns and you're competing against somebody selling your product. So all those things just make it so ugly. And that was something I didn't want to be involved with. So I felt like, not only, there's two things. When you're a D2C business, you don't deal with all that, but you also get to enjoy the benefit of controlling the entire customer experience. And for me, the customer experience is everything, because my goal was never to start a company that was like a cash grab. My goal was to start a company and be around in 50 years or 60 years. So it wasn't about getting all your money right now and get it in my bank account, and then we can file bankruptcy in a few years or just disappear and we're gone and you're screwed. That was never our strategy. So it's very important to control the customer journey for us. So that's something that D2C allows you to do. Like, we have amazing customer service. I want to provide you with great content. I want to make the whole buying experience as pleasurable as possible, because you're making a big decision. Our average order value is around 500 USD. It fluctuates slightly, goes up, goes down. So it's a lot of money for people to be spending, So that's what made D2C attractive. And then, though right now there's some very negative conversations going on about the D2C graveyard that's happening. I don't believe, first of all, there are companies that I think wanted to be D2C that shouldn't be D2C, that they need a retail presence.
Give examples of that, because that could be really interesting.
Well, so there are products that that really benefit from you holding them. Like whether it's seeing the quality difference between something. I would say like things like, obviously there are D2C clothing brands, and the only way they work is you got to make the returns very easy. So I can buy 2 different sizes or 3 different sizes, right? But the negative is I now have 3 pairs of pants out of inventory floating in the ether out there. And I'm going to get 2 of them back. So to sell every pair of pants, I have to pay for 3 pair to send them to you. So those, I've got 2 pair in transit at all times. That's challenging. So sometimes to me that retail is better for something like that. I think if you have a product, a food or a beverage product that can benefit from somebody trying it in store, like sampling, I think is very important. It's hard to say I'm going to buy this drink and I've never tried it and I'm just going to order it online, and hope that it's good, or hope that it does all the medicinal benefits that they're claiming it will do. And I think like early on, people said, you want to buy cookware. People won't buy cookware that way. Well, it was a challenge. It took us like all of 17 to figure it out, and into 18, and it got better and better and better. We didn't break $1 million a month in cookware until online, that is, until into 19. So I think, recognizing the best way to position yourself. I think D2C is just having a correction. A lot of good companies became D2C companies because they had no other way to sell it during the pandemic. So, now companies that shouldn't be D2C will reposition themselves to both be retail and D2C. And then companies maybe that did over ordering because of COVID expectations of sales. The ones that don't go under will correct themselves and, change inventory needs and then market accordingly.
It's so fascinating because there's a brand over here. I don't know if it's reached the shores of LA just yet, called Huel, Huel, which is, I think it's fucking revolting, to be honest. But it's basically like this. It's a food drink that it's like a nutritionally complete meal. They started D2C, absolutely flying, huge brand, and now they've got into retail. But it's like they're doing the same thing. But I think you're so right. It's so category specific and so product specific. But let's just say, let's use HEXCLAD as the example here. But if you could boil it down to like, what are the 3 things, if you're starting a D2C brand tomorrow, but with HEXCLAD, like, what should you be doing? Like, where should you be focusing your energy? What moves the needle? Is it adverts? Is it the Shopify account? Is it?
So yeah, we use Shopify, but I think, look, if you're starting the product, you got to have a good product, right? And just as important as your product, let's just assume you have a good product. Now comes consistency of messaging. Okay. This was something we learned the hard way. We were giving conflicting messages sometimes because, this worked for a minute, and then another time, that worked too. So let's send that message and that message, where we really needed to talk about our innovation and our durability. Like those things needed to be in all our messaging. And that took a little time. And in our case, we were a victim of our own success. When it's working, you're like, then we got it right. No, because as we got cleaner in our messaging, our sales increased even more. So
Any examples of the 2 different messages types?
Well, so like stuff would happen, like we've been lucky enough that we haven't made too many unsuccessful hires in our company. But very early on, we had like a head of marketing. and she was not a bad hire, very smart woman, not right for us. And which is nothing against her. I should have recognized that. But again, a lot of it came because, when they know all the buzzwords and the overall strategy, yeah, I knew she was smart. It didn't mean she was right. Like, here's the thing. One thing I said from day one, I go, we're innovative cookware. When people would ask me to describe it, I'm like, we're badass cookware. And they're like, well, what does that mean? I'm like, we're badass. It's cool cookware that works really well, works better than the stuff your nan has in her kitchen. And we make no apologies for it. And guess what? An 8-year-old girl can be a badass, and a 90-year-old grandpa can be a badass. And we all have a badass inside of us. And you're going to be a badass chef with our cookware. And I would think of having said that, I remember and maybe it was a bit like nobody believed in us, because early on in our success, I got asked by somebody what's a famous photo that you would use to describe the HEXCLAD? And I thought for a second, I'm like, there's a famous photo of Johnny Cash. I think it's in Folsom Prison. This photo, have you ever seen where he's like that with the middle finger? It's like, it's just a giant finger and you see his face behind it. And I'm like, that's kind of who we are. And it's funny, Jason, my president, must have gone to a flea market. He found that on a t-shirt and he bought it for me. So I have that t-shirt now. But it wasn't like a fuck you to like any one person. It was a fuck you to like people that don't believe in me. A fuck you to people who don't have confidence in me. And by me, I mean all of us. Whoever buys our pan, whoever doesn't buy our pan, whoever's home trying to learn how to cook, whoever's exploring the culinary journey, it's like, so when I was incorporating that into the messaging more, when like this woman who was running, she hired a creative team, and they put up a storyboard of like grandma in Iowa, with her gingham dress on, cooking HEXCLAD and taking an apple pie out of the oven. I'm like, do you not fucking get us? Like, the only way I'm going to like this ad is if she steps outside and puts on a motorcycle jacket and gets on a Harley and drives away. And then she's a fucking badass grandma. But otherwise, that's not us. Even if it sells, that's not us. Just like I see the ad of like like the middle-aged couple, like gray-haired, just graying, but they're fit, and they're in their loft kitchen in New York. They're drinking Cabernet, cooking together, and there's smooth jazz playing in the background. That's what I think high-end cookware companies do for their ads. Like ours is like, like to a lesbian couple doing shots of tequila in their kitchen, cooking, and can't like keep their hands off each other. That's like, we're like just outside the box, or whatever couple, like, it's just like, it's not a traditional, like gray haired 57-year-old white couple who can afford this product. I want little kids to want to use it because they don't mess it up. They're not going to destroy the Teflon pan that their mom had, or that the dad who doesn't normally cook and likes to jam a fork into the pan isn't going to mess it up.